All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another podcast episode of Tempered Leadership. I'm your host, Eric Rieger, and today I am joined by Bill Clayton of Transworld Systems. Bill, how are you doing?
Doing well, Eric. Glad to join you today.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show. You and I have known each other for quite a while, and I think we're going to have an interesting conversation on a few topics. Let's start by, telling the folks a little bit about Transworld and what the heck you do over there.
Okay. Well, Transworld was actually started in 1970 to be an alternative to conventional collections or extended in-house efforts. I've been with the company now 32 years. Matter of fact, our average tenure is over 15 years. And so we go out and show clients that have money owed to them how to get it faster than they're doing internally, at less cost than they're spending internally, and without upsetting a base that's repetitive and a source of referrals, which is pretty contrary to the way typically you use an agency. But that philosophy now has made us the largest collection service in the country, probably larger than the next 20 combined. And we're used by government entities, utility companies. Again, anybody that sends out statements is probably somebody that we can help save money, time, grief, and effort.
And that's really what, kind of attracted when we were introduced. I try to keep in my circles, like-minded people. And that's what I found about you is that, we have a very common passion for not letting people in our ecosystem that don't have the client's needs in mind. And, if you want to put it in a nutshell, what you do, debt collection is not necessarily a comfortable term for people. And yet when I heard your approach for how you tried to not only help your clients collect the money that's owed to them, but also to save the relationship and not make it a stressful thing for the people who do owe. I was intrigued by it because I'd never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, actually, most businesses don't realize that their receivables are their future business. We do both B2B, B2C, but dentist yourself, I always tell a dentist, if the patient's paid the bill and they have a toothache, where are they coming? He goes, back to my office. I'm like, right. Now you got another patient that's out there 6 months past due and they owe $400 and they have a toothache. Where do you think they're going? And every time the dentist will go, well, probably someplace else. So it behooves a business to realize where are they becoming repetitive in-house. Bring in a third party, but it's got to be really low cost, where we're only charging an average of $10 an account. And it's got to be really diplomatic. And because of that, again, our client base is from Fortune 500s to solo practitioners.
Yeah. And that was, again, the whole relationship aspect of it. It made sense. I mean, as you were explaining it to me, I'm like, and that's kind of a whole leadership philosophy that I've learned over the years with some of the books I've read. Simon Sinek is a really big proponent of that. You just don't know what somebody else is going through. And there's very few people that go in and consume a service that have the intent of not paying for the service. So there's some circumstance, there's some reason. And if a business works to collaborate with the individual or parties that they've contracted with who are having trouble, and you can keep that relationship, I mean, man, that just seems like the right way to run a business.
Yeah, it boils down to, we're all in the people business. And you're so right. When I look at a prospect, I don't really concerned if they have a huge need or a small need. I'm just looking, are they nice people that I can have a long-term relationship with? So it's very, very important. You can help a company increase their profits without increasing their sales. It's just a win-win. And that's what I like Transworld. I have clients that have been with me for 30 years.
Yeah, and that's another thing that over the years, you and I have been introducing people to one another. And again, the common theme is there's really nothing necessarily in it for either one of us when we make the introduction. It's just you know somebody and you're like, hey, this person should meet Bill, or you know somebody and you're like, hey, this person should talk to Eric. And then wherever it goes from there is between, the two parties. But the introductions that are being made, they're quality people. And that's really kind of a key in terms of leadership, is your circles tend to be, that when you have those quality people, what do they say? You're like the sum of the 5 people you hang around with the most, or,
Right.
and when those circles are like that, you're a lot more likely to just evolve and have, better mentors, better peers. And, tell me a little bit about your philosophy with that.
Well, you're right, and I think every day we run into tons of opportunities. We may not realize them, but it takes a mindset to even realize a lot of the negative things that happen to people can be turned into a positive. So my philosophy, kind of what my dad taught me years ago, he said we are directly rewarded in life for the amount of things we do for other people. So for the introductions, if I introduce you to some people that helps your business, then eventually you're going to go, wow, I should send Bill one. And we just hope we all live long enough to see that uh, karma come back to us, the good karma.
Well, your dad hit it right on the head. My dad always used to tell me, you're not holding the light in the right spot. So that was the advice. I got
I like
really good
that.
at flashlight pointing.
Yeah.
No, my dad instilled in me, early on when he was a mechanic, he was a truck driver. So, I mean, there was, the house always smelled like diesel fuel and oil, and we had more tools than, I inherited his tools when he passed, and I still don't know what half of them are for. But he would always, if he would ask for a tool and I'd give him the wrong one, and I'd be like, well, that's close enough, you could still hit it with that. And he would just look at me and he goes, use the right tool for the right job. So I guess that was early leadership training for me, is, don't try
Yeah.
to hit a nail with a screwdriver. It doesn't work.
Trades is another great industry for us. Again, all industries are, but you're right. A lot of times, life is it's a numbers game. And my son-in-law recently was furloughed out of the restaurant industry, so he decided to change, and he's doing door-to-door sales for roofing companies. And not the best time in a pandemic to be door-to-door, but he was told, he has to hit 20 doors a day. And what I told him, I said, you can outperform other people in activities until your skill level catches up. So he was doing 75 to 100 doors a day. And
Wow.
this new company's already A's because he's got contracts written up. But it's great thing about America is if you have the work ethic and passion, you can pretty much be successful in anything.
Absolutely. Well, we mentioned, the vertical market there. Now, you guys do, healthcare is one of the markets, and I think when we were talking earlier, 50% is about your particular client base is about 50% healthcare. How has the pandemic affected those relationships? Because you got to figure, with all the people unemployed and healthcare being a big issue, I would just assume on the outside, maybe you'll correct me here, but that the number of delinquent accounts has probably gone up significantly, forcing the need for your services more.
Well, in the collection industry, another reason I've been here 32 years, it's recession proof. In a good economy, people extend more credit, they have more receivables. In a bad economy, they really need their money. So it's a certain percentage. If you told me that you only send out 100 statements a month, I would know statistically, Eric, that you would have at least 4 to 8 people that will go 90 days past due. Not that they're bad necessarily. It's just a business that's competing against all the other bills that come into that business or consumer. Even a B2B, when your invoice goes into accounts payable, their job's not to get to the bottom of the bucket every day. Their job is, who do we have to pay? Who can we hold on to forever? I mean, that's cash flow. You want to, it'd be great if no bills came.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd vote for that. Well, how has the pandemic affected you guys from like, as you're working from home, I'm working from home a lot. Has that,
Right.
I think you said most of your, or most or all of your organization is now remote. Was that always the case, or is that kind of shifted now with the pandemic?
Well, it's been that way probably for the last 5 years, but when I'm dealing with a local prospect or client, I would always ask them if they want me to come by in person or to do an online business meeting. I prefer to be in person because you get to see their body language. You get to see so much more about their business. A lot of times they give you, I can't tell you how many tours I've had of people's businesses. Um, and that's really a part of the bonding. What I think why people don't like salespeople in general is because too many salespeople are out there just to make a sale. They're here today and you never hear from them again. And, you know, relationships in business is just as important as it is in life. So,
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a core tenet, when you're talking about leadership in general. Obviously you're with an organization that values relationships. That's a key thing. So I mean, that's something I see, lost a little bit in certain businesses where, you mentioned some metrics, going out and knocking on 20 doors. There's a reason why those metrics exist. There's a story behind it, and there's relationships we're trying to build. And statistically, it's always easier to sell more to an existing relationship than it is to go out and build a new one. But at the same time, you have to still be building new relationships all the time. You and I have been trying to do that ever since we've known each other, for sure.
right. Well, it's easy for me because with Transworld Systems, the ROI is all in the client's favor. We'll have companies that'll invest a couple $1,000s into Transworld and they'll get $500,000 back. Going back to healthcare, there's a small percentage of every healthcare organization that has unpaid insurance claims. Well, there's a state law, depending on the state, that they got to pay within 30 to 45 days. Why do they have claims going out past 90 days? Just the way it happened. And that's also a service for about $10 per claim that we can get resolution on a lot of those. So it's pretty rewarding when a client says, gee, Bill, because of your service, this is the first year I've been able to pay bonuses, Christmas bonuses in quite a while. So, uh,
That's got to feel good.
yeah. Well, and if I can't help them, I'm going to refer somebody else into them. The more you do for somebody, the quicker they tend to like you. It's just like when you go to your Chamber of Commerce meeting. If you only go one time, you're probably not going to get any business. But if you go 5 or more times, then people start knowing you. And once somebody knows you, it's a lot easier to have a conversation.
Well,
Wouldn't you agree?
that sounds like building relationships to me. It's almost like there's a theme to the show here.
Yeah. Well, I think it is.
Well, let me ask you this. Now that you're fully remote, and you guys have a lot of people in the organization, how has that been in terms of maintaining company culture? Like, has it put a strain on it, or have you guys figured out a way? Because I know there's a lot of people I talk to, that seems to be, as this pandemic drags on, the culture aspect, and then moving past the culture aspect, the physical and mental health aspect of it. So let's talk about the culture piece first, and then we'll dive into the other two.
Yeah, I think the culture piece comes with tenure in a company. Once you get to know everybody, like I know everybody across the country that's in Transworld. Some of the newer people I don't, but when we had an office, we would have meetings twice a week, and it was good to talk up against and kind of mentor people. I think in this world, everybody needs to have their own board of directors. Find 5 people that you totally respect and tell them that you're going to be accountable to them and you want to talk to them once a month. And it's funny that a little bit of recognition or somebody, on your shoulder whispering, "Come on, Eric, you can do it. You can do it," goes a long way. So,
It certainly does. I mean, that's a that would be one of the golden nuggets I think to take away from this is, I've learned that through some coaching and mentoring that I've had provided to me over the years. It kind of goes back to that whole you're the sum of the five people you spend the most time with, or the average of the five people you spend the most time with. But having that board of directors, having some kind of accountability when you're a leader in an organization, a lot of times, people, they might look and go, well, who's holding you accountable? If you're at the quote unquote top, who do you have holding you accountable? Otherwise, it's just, we have a certain set of rules and then maybe they don't apply to you. And it's good to have those people in your life who will call you out or hold you accountable when things are not quite where you said they would be.
yeah, you have a good leader when they ask more questions and make less statements.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
the sales trick, but it's effective.
I've heard it said quite a bit that, like, if you're the leader and you're the smartest person in the room, you're really not. You've done something wrong. And for me,
True.
it's not hard to not be the smartest person in the room. There's a big pool out there of people I could just put in, and immediately I'm not the smartest person in the room. So I'm
Well,
fortunate in that regard.
yep. And in business life, or just in general, when you're out in the public, you don't know what's going on with somebody else's life. And we would train our new reps to make them smile all the time, because I said, your smile might be the only sunshine they've seen in weeks. It might just keep them going on. I saw a really interesting story today about some little boy that was going around the neighborhood, and he knocked on this door. Nobody came. He knocked again. Finally, this lady came, and he said, "I just want to let you know God loves you," and he left a flyer. Well, she was upstairs on a chair and getting ready to hang herself. And she said, "No
Wow.
one ever knocks my door. I'll come down." She told this in the church, this
Holy
story,
cow.
and it was the priest's son who did it.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah, life's interesting. And I think, we all have our baggage, but you just don't know. If you think you're really having a bad time, look around, because somebody else is having it worse. And
Yeah.
the little things you do can make a big difference in somebody else's life.
Well, that's taken a position of gratitude, and I forget where I was reading. I read a lot, so a lot of it gets jumbled up in my head. But it was a couple years ago. I was reading either a book or something online. It was the middle of winter, and you're a former native of Illinois, so you know how the Chicago winters can get here.
Yep.
And we had some stretch of minus 20-degree days. It was some ridiculous number of, it was just below 20 every day. And I read something about, go outside for like 30 seconds without a coat just to feel the cold
Right.
make you alive, and just like scream something into the air. And I'm like, are you nuts? And I did it, and I
Yeah.
came back in, and I was like, I felt energized for the day. And it
Yeah.
was just the weirdest thing of, you appreciate being alive, appreciate being able to feel that, because there are people who would give anything to be able to walk outside in the middle of the cold, feel it, and just feel alive from it, be shocked awake by it. And I never forgot that. And it was like, I wouldn't recommend doing it on a daily basis when it's minus 20 for that
Right.
kind of period. But it's just that mindset of, when you wake up, be grateful that you woke up for another day, because there's a lot of people that just don't get that opportunity, or they can't get out of bed, or
Yeah.
so
Things we take
that's
for granted amaze other people. I remember years ago, my brother-in-law, who was from Atlanta, really never been north, and he came up to Illinois to visit us, and he had never seen black dirt before. All he was used to was red clay. So he saw black dirt, and he had to get down and kind of like you were doing a snow angel. He get down in the dirt. It's like a dog rolling in it. It was so funny.
That would be something to take a video of. And I've got a friend who I think she's going to be on the show at some point in the future. Although after she hears this, maybe not. But she's from Australia, and where she's from, like it never snows.
Hmm.
So she was here a couple of years ago, and it snowed, and it was like, I mean, you want to talk about just a sense of amazement, and you know how the snow up here, like we don't look forward in Chicago or any place up north where it
No.
snows a lot. We don't look forward to it. And just, I wanted to get in the car, and she's just walking around like looking, at this. I'm like, it's snow, let's go. And it's like, I've never seen snow before in person. It's like, is it going to
No.
get, are we going to get a lot of it? And I'm like, God, I hope not. And it's like, oh, I hope so. And it's just that sense of gratitude for the
Yeah.
things we take, like you said, you take for granted that it's just going to snow in the winter here. And other people are like, it's amazing. And you're like, no,
Right.
it turns black after about 3 hours, and it's hard to
Yep.
shovel, and people
Well, and
would
you
love
should
the
take
opportunity to do that.
no person for granted either, because even a stranger you meet, the world kind of works in a two-way street. You may be the only sunshine that they saw, but eventually, something will come back to you from that, even if it's just the great feeling of helping somebody. Um, I think most people feel rewarded when they can actually help somebody, especially if they appreciate it. That's important too.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's just, again, tying it back to relationships, appreciation. It's how you conduct yourself, and your attitude becomes contagious, one way or another, whether it's a good attitude or a bad attitude. And again, just taking the time to take that perspective of how somebody else might feel about something, or putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. And it kind of goes back to when we first met. I was amazed at how you guys handled business. You are putting yourselves in the shoes of the person who's not able to pay for whatever reason, and trying to salvage that relationship. And so you're not just, these aren't just platitudes. I mean, you're actually walking the walk that you talk. And I think that's why we have connected over the years, and why you're on the show here.
Well, yes, you have to have some empathy, but I think sometimes to get your point across to other people, you have to be good at analogies, because sometimes, it's interesting. You may tell me something, and somebody else will tell me the same thing, but it's not until I hear it the third or fourth time that it actually sinks in.
Well, it's just because we're getting old, Bill.
I guess.
Well, talk to me a little bit about anything that you're doing specifically with, because there's probably some isolation happening now with being, remote worker. What are you doing to take care of yourself physically and mentally that, maybe you weren't doing prior to the pandemic, or even, before you moved out to North Carolina?
Well, with having only one day of snow per year, I get to do a lot more outside yard work. I'm still
Sure,
riding my
rub that
motorcycle.
in.
Yeah. Yeah, getting exercise, it's got to be part of your business life and personal life. We're kind of machines. We need to be oiled regularly and used. Otherwise, we're going to rust. And I think
Do you,
sometimes people get all depressed and they just think that, when am I going to get my break? And they just sit and do nothing. And the reality is, do something. As I said before, passion and effort outperforms everybody else.
do you find it easy or challenging to have that quote unquote work-life balance when your work is around you all the time at home?
No, I don't find it challenging. For me, I think it's more routine than anything else. The excitement comes is meeting somebody new and learning from them, because I'll learn from anybody. Even when a rookie comes into our company, I'll learn something from them. Everybody has a nugget. You just have to be looking for those nuggets every day. Like I said earlier, every day there's tons of opportunities that we walk right by and just not focused on what that opportunity is or how we could have taken advantage of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you know, it's again, it just kind of goes, all the theme kind of circles back. And if you love what you do, you know, you don't work a day in your life. Isn't that the
True.
saying? And you know, I kind of, I've read some things and I've talked to people about that whole concept of work-life balance. And there's, you know, there's no real such thing, because one thing or another is going to demand your time. And it's really kind of about where you put your priorities and have some discipline. You know, for myself, you know, last year I really started taking my physical health into a lot more of a spotlight. I started walking, and now I'm up to almost 10 miles a day. I walk when you
Wow,
can walk here. Yeah, it's, well,
that's a
we're getting
lot.
to that. We're getting to that point now where I'm going to be slowing it down and going into the home gym here a little more. But I prioritize myself, where I get up in the morning and, you know, like if it's nice out, I'll go for a walk before I do anything. And it was that mindset shift of, I'm not being selfish. Work is going to be there. You
Right.
know, the extra hours not going to, you know, it's not going to make a difference. There's always, you know, you could work 24 hours a day. There's, you know, there's always going to be more things to do. It's, is this a priority over my health? And if my health keeps declining, at what point can I not do work anymore?
Right.
So that was my mindset of really kind of changing it. And, you know, some of the stuff that had happened in my family, you know, my father passed away from cancer in 2013. So there was, you know, and he was the last person to ever, you know, put himself first, and all this stuff. And as I started getting older, you know, your 40th birthday, then your 45th birthday, and then stuff doesn't work as well as it did before, and your aches and pains don't go away, you know, from the weekend
Right.
warrior stuff. And
Right.
the next thing you know, you're like, holy cow, the clock's ticking here. I better actually start focusing on myself and getting back into somewhat of shape. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to serve anybody. And that's, you know, that's, I think
I
that's really important for a remote worker, or
totally
for this
agree.
environment.
In my family tree, I'm already way past my expiration date.
Well, they said, I saw another thing that said, if you're over 50 years old, you can thank science for that, because you know, the environment, the nature, everything wants to kill you by the time you're 50. So if you're over 50, congratulations, you know, thank science. And you know, that type of stuff for extending your lifespan. And I'm like, okay, that's another
I,
thing I didn't need to think about.
I think too, a lot of it has changed with the culture. You know, when you and I were kids, our parents probably said go outside, and we were out from sun up to, you know, we had to be home when it got dark, and we played into the dirt. And
Yep, drank from
uh,
the hose.
yeah. And nowadays, I think everybody's in a bubble wrap, and it's interesting time we're going through. But
Well,
I'm very optimistic.
I was going to say, let's kind of close on that. What are you seeing for the future? What are your projections for the next year or two, for the economy, for business in general? Are you? It sounds like you're pretty bullish on things.
Yeah, I think the economy will come back. There's just so many different factors now that are playing into everything. You know, we could probably have this topic go for another week. But sometimes you just have to realize that, you know, yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, and today's a gift. That's why they call it the present. So when you wake up, you've got a choice. You know, are you going to make as much as you can out of it today and enjoy it, or are you just going to sit around like a lump on the log and do nothing? And I prefer to keep moving because I know that's part of helping you live longer is keep moving.
Absolutely. Well, that it's that attitude, which is why we've become friends over the years. And you know, Bill, I'm really grateful to have you in my life, in my circle. I'm proud to call you a friend. If people want to get in touch with you, what's your email and what's your phone? How can they reach out to you?
Sure. Well, the best way is my email, which is william.clayton, Clayton, at transworldsystems.com. I do not carry the cell phone on my hip constantly. Matter of fact, a lot of times it's off because I want to make calls. I don't always want to receive them. So even my clients, I tell them, best way to get a hold of me, send me an email. Because
There you
we're
go.
always looking at that all day long.
And I know you respond right away. So it's william.clayton at transworldsystems.com,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
And I'd be
Bill.
happy to help anybody that is looking. Sometimes when a salesperson comes to your door, you have to, if you give a referral, I'll say, hey, talk to Eric. I know he can really help you, but you judge for yourself. And that,
Absolutely.
and that makes it a little easier for everybody.
Yeah, because we never know what's going to come out of my mouth. So always
I
better
have,
to cover your bases.
I have faith in you, Eric.
Likewise, my friend. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me here. I always enjoy our chats, and I hope you'll come back on the show again in the future.
I will, and I'll end with this. While we were talking, I thought of another strategic introduction for you that I should have sent your way a long time ago. So look forward to that coming today, tomorrow, or the next day.
Excellent. I will get my email fired up right after I get done processing this podcast. Until then, be well, my friend. And to everybody out there, thank you for listening. This has been another episode of Tempered Leadership. I am your host, Eric Rieger, and my friend Bill Clayton. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Take care, everybody.